Okay, so we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is 6:44. Thank you for your patience. Welcome everyone. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I do need approval of a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to announcements. It doesn't look as if we have any announcements at this moment. Actually, those were for me. I forgot. We're moving on to accolades. For the Idaho Battle of the Books, we had Twin Lakes Elementary take first place. Betty Kiefer Elementary takes second and third place. We have the Idaho Journalist of the Year as a Lakeland High School senior. So congratulations.
Alyssa K. Wood. I do want to add, because since we posted, we have a few more. Zaya Munier, who is a Lakeland High School student, was the 5A, 6A volleyball player of the year, one of Kelsey's athletes, and then also 5A, 6A overall female athlete of the year. And then Malia Miller was the 1A through 4A basketball player of the year from Timberlake High School. And Caius Tebby, also 1A through 4A male athlete, overall male athlete of the year from Timberlake High School. And then I received an email today from one of our school nurses, the admin assistant, Leanne Kelly, up at Athol Elementary. We had a student choking, and she did the Heimlich maneuver and dislodged what he was choking on, saved
That's
a life
great.
today. So
Thank
that's a big
you,
awesome.
Mrs. Kelly.
Yes.
Okay. There was no one that signed up for public input. I just want to extend, is there anyone that has public input that didn't sign up? Okay, so we'll move on to public input. Moving on to the reports, we have the financial report. Do any of the trustees have any conversation we'd like to have on the financial reports?
Nope.
No. All right. You jumped up to stand
Thank
up.
you.
Do you need to say something? Thank you, Jessica. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have the minutes of the previous meeting, minutes of subcommittee meetings, HR items, and regular and special bills. Do we have any questions, comments, or conversations to have on the minutes of the previous meetings?
No.
How about on the, are we good with accepting the minutes of the subcommittee meetings?
Yes.
HR items, do we have any comments, questions, or conversations we need to have?
Nope.
Nope. Yep. How about regular or special bills?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we need to have any conversation from anyone on the bills?
No.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to old business, we have the superintendent follow-up. Do we need to have any conversation on the, well actually, I am curious. I did have one question on the bills. It showed that, which kind of ties into your yard signs. It showed on the bills that we paid for levy signs. What was that about?
We have those big banners that just say please vote.
Please vote.
Okay.
And
we only bought 5 of them?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we also had to, the ones we had previously, we had printed the date on it, and we wanted to reuse those, so we got a patch to go over the date, so it has the current date. So
Okay.
that was also included in that.
Okay. That was my only.
Will be one more charge for that, just for the little adjustments on it, so you'll see that on the next bill list.
Perfect.
Just so you know.
thank you. Any conversation questions about what we need to have on, oh, we have little buttons, alright, I like that. Good idea. Oh no, put them down,
Not
put it down, put it down.
Can't
Not
say
supposed
vote.
to tell. Well, it
We-
just says
we
vote
can-
It
for
says
the
vote.
levy, it doesn't, oh yeah, it says.
Vote Lakeland levy.
Yeah, put it down, we're not supposed to tell people how to vote, that's illegal. Alright, moving on to the financial follow-up. Do we have any questions, conversations we wanna have? This is just, I do have a question. Sorry, I'm off my game.
Jessica here from CFO.
Thank you. The date of April 7th was when you pulled the, attendance, correct?
Yes, Chelsea prepares that report.
Okay, we had no pre-kindergarten that day?
So,
Correct, they don't have school on Mondays. Pre-K does not have school on Mondays.
Okay,
and
Thank
also
you.
the attendance doesn't count towards, it does, but it doesn't, so it's kind of a funky thing. They don't necessarily count attendance for our pre-K kids.
okay,
So that's why we leave that number off of there as well. Chelsea can explain it a little bit better, so
Okay.
when, I'll have her put a blurb in our next financial follow-up for you on May 7th, just to explain why we're not including that number on that report.
okay. Cause I know I've seen it before, so that's why I was like, oh wait, we didn't have any kids that day? That's a
Right.
little
But
interesting.
yes,
but
our
we
general
didn't.
programs director is correct, we only do the 4 days a week for her program, so.
Okay, perfect. That was the only question I had. Does anybody have anything for the bills? Or the financial follow-up, pass the bills?
I will tell you the state webinar yesterday was nerve-wracking. So I can't wait to inform you of what the state has decided to do with the salary-based apportionment,
Okay,
with our, budget sessions.
That sounds exciting.
It's been fun.
Oh.
well, thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Moving on to the facilities update. Do we have any comments, questions, or whatnots? Where are we at, for concrete?
It's
Tim
also-
Haig, Facilities Director, it's
Okay.
actually, we're having pre-bid tomorrow morning.
Okay,
So the walkthroughs tomorrow morning, it's out to bid right now. Architects West prepared, specifications for all of the projects for us. I think we shared at the last meeting that we have 3 that are included in the base bid, and then we have 3 that are alternate bids, just to make sure that we can stay within the budget that's been allocated for this project. There was quite a bit of work that went into the specs that we did with Architects West. We're making some adjustments. For example, at John Brown Elementary, you can drive straight into the doors there. So we're trying to add a curb, and then add some, what are
Same
those
thing
called?
over
Stanchions?
the
Bolsters?
bollards.
Bollards, there we go. I knew you knew the word, but we're trying to add that so that you can't drive into the door. Same thing with Lakeland Middle School, adding a curb so that they're not flush with the concrete there,
right.
and adding some bollards.
Bollards.
To the front of the building, so you can't just drive into the front of the building.
Okay.
Another exciting thing that's not in here, Tim has been super amazing working with Architects West, working with Idaho Transportation Department. We may be able to change the approach for Lakeland Middle School so that we're not right on top of the crosswalk for the entrance for
excellent.
parent drop off. We can actually shift everything over and close the existing middle entrance. And make it just a single in and out loop instead of what we are currently doing, which will be a lot safer for our students and for anybody in that parking lot, to be completely honest. So we're working through that process
And
as
the
well.
state's completely on board with it.
Which is exciting, because in the
Yeah.
past they have not.
Oh, that's great.
So the concrete projects, I know that there's some frustration over how long it's taken, but really the specifications, we wanted to get it right. We can't just replace like for like in some of these areas, we really need to make some improvements and be compliant with ADA. So we really did need the assistance of the architect to get the specs correct, so that whoever's bidding is bidding apples to apples.
Right.
So, but it is out to bid. Work will start in June as soon as school is out.
Any other comments or questions on the facilities update?
No.
When? No. Thank
No,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Down to the Veterans Memorial. They've asked this to be brought back, and I wasn't quite sure if action needed to be taken, which is why it's bracketed as action. It looks like, I did go through this, I wish this was summarized a little differently. But it looks like we did vote on where it was to go, but then we asked for a better rendering. And so the ball is kinda left back in your dad's court. Have they gotten new renderings done, or?
I think they did all the architect work, is what we're talking about. What
Yes.
it's supposed to look like,
Yes.
yeah.
And where it's at in relation to everything that exists.
Right, that's what was, the rendering was supposed to be, because there was a couple of different layouts that we looked at that it was kinda hard to see what is this really gonna look at, or look like. So after our meeting, cause we did vote that yes, we would put it in the middle, but the layout of what it would actually look like on the rendering is what we were expecting back that we haven't received. So, and then I know,
They were just asking about how we're gonna do the lease, or,
with respect to the land,
yeah, like a 100-year lease or whatever. $1 a year or something like that.
okay.
Like Little League does with the Lions Club, they lease the fields for $1 a year,
Mhm.
so.
Did you reach out, Lisa, to Amy White? It says Lisa indicated she would reach out to Amy White for further information and sought board approval for the proposed location, which we did. Did you reach out to Amy White with respect to what the whole concept of everything?
I'd have to go back and I double check, but I do believe that I did. I think I have it from both Amy and Megan.
Because Bob was, I mean, just trying to recap and refresh. Bob's concern is, you know, the when you're facing the high school, that lifty up thing. It's called something, can't think of
The
it.
dirt mound?
That mound where the sign
It's a
is.
little nicer than a dirt
Berm.
mound.
A berm.
Berm, okay, well the berm with the beautiful sign was put there, just to prevent any direct, you know, people flying through the signal and going into the school.
And interestingly enough, we had somebody hit the fence just beyond that. not
Right,
very long ago.
right. And I'm not sure that that's been fixed yet.
We did receive money to fix it.
Oh, good.
Yep, the insurance was
Job
done as
done.
well.
Good.
Nice.
And so I know that there was, part of the rendering would be how are we going to make that, secure. You had mentioned we're looking at, or that they are considering the, like a, not a chain link, but a
So you're,
wrought iron, thank you.
alright, fence.
Yeah, that would be around it, which would be definitely a deterrent for a vehicle. I mean, it wouldn't deter the vehicle, but it would stop it before it got any closer to the building. So, yeah, because the layout and the design was supposed to be brought back to the board for approval.
Okay.
All right, so I think with respect to Amy White, the direction was more finding out how do we go about the land and this engagement. What do we need to do?
I will look for that, and if I don't have it, I will reach out to her. I honestly can't.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Any more that we converse on this?
Nope.
Okay.
One of the questions for legal is, assuming it's on school district property, any asset added to school district property becomes school district property.
Then I think the question, so if we're leasing property, does that become our asset still? That would
question
It's
about.
gonna, yeah, well,
It's
I
a
don't know,
permanent improvement.
I'm no attorney, but if, you can't lease something you don't own. So if you
Well, we
it,
own the
you can lease-
land, we wouldn't be owning the structure, which
So we
is
just
what we
need
need
that.
clarification on how to do that.
Because do we want to own the?
I don't think you have a choice.
If you own the property,
I believe it would be considered a permanent improvement, and unless they wanna take it completely down if the lease ends, which most people don't, then it would become something that would be property of the district.
I do think I asked that question of Megan though.
Okay,
I will follow up and get information about
great.
what the lease looks like and then what responsibilities we would have and what ownership looks like.
Okay. Moving on to the supplemental curriculum, we're going into new business.
It's tall. Lynch has the assistant superintendent. Thanks, Jessica.
Do you have any conversations we want to have on any of the supplemental curriculum that's being brought forward?
2 of the books are right there as well.
Yes, we did pass those around. I noticed that some of these are audio books.
That was just the link. They're none of our audio. It was just, that gave a better description, so I just linked that in, but none of them are audio. They're hard
Okay.
bound. Yeah.
Alright.
So, no audio,
Okay.
but sometimes it's hard to find great description, so I just find the one that gives the best and most comprehensive.
Okay.
The one was in German, I didn't get a chance to translate it, Gilead.
So that mine didn't do that, and somebody else said that to me. So then I redid it, and so then it was fine. But I never saw the German, but somebody
Yeah.
else told me the same, and I'm like, well,
I was
that's
like,
weird.
okay.
That didn't work on my Amazon. Did not work that way. So why don't you speak multiple languages? German being one of them. And I think this, we might have a few more, but this would wrap up all of middle school and high school novel sets that we have used in the past that we wanted approval on
Perfect.
officially. We might have a few more outliers, but 95% of them are done.
I move to approve the supplemental curriculum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other conversation we need to have? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries. I would like to address the fact that I think we need to have some direction on comments people are making, because I don't appreciate that we're calling certain people out. This isn't the first time it's happened. It's inappropriate. It's
Would you
highly
guys be
inappropriate.
comfortable if I just, when it's that, I just take it out?
Or just redact the name.
Well, I can just take that portion out, and if you at some point, I can make it so you are aware of that, but I mean, we've had it on all fronts.
Right.
And so,
We
again,
have.
you can still capture the essence of what the people are trying to say without
Right.
the derogatory comment, so are you good if I just take it out?
The comment as a whole, or doing the
Just that
redaction?
part.
The redaction?
Yeah, I can just,
Redaction would seem appropriate, but I would also encourage more instruction that the concerns need to be focused on the book itself.
like I've said that a couple of times,
Yeah.
but I think
Let's
when people get
bold it,
passionate.
put it in red. I don't know,
um,
it's just not appropriate.
So,
Okay.
I'm just putting notes to myself that when there's disparaging comments, I'll just redact them across the board on any fronts. Cause
Well-
you'll still get the sense of the book, like how they feel about the book, but when it's attacks on personal people,
Yeah, I think as long as the identifying information is redacted, because either way, I like to see the whole, I mean, that one, whatever that one was that we did with 750 comments, actually, I think that was a policy. But I still like to read to get the feel of what everybody's saying, but I don't even know the names of you know, but
We've had comments that are attacking the teachers, we've
Yeah.
had
Right.
comments that have been attacking to
yeah,
various, like,
Board members.
yeah,
yeah,
it
that doesn't
really
help
should be
us.
about the book, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Moving on to the STEM Charter MOU. Okay, so we heard back from iCrimp and it doesn't sound like they offered much of anything other than, it looks okay.
And
Looks
don't,
okay.
don't share anything via Google, I guess, cause it goes into your spam, which is why you didn't get that's why we didn't get it back from you for a while. We didn't realize you'd gotten anything.
So the recommendation from legal is that, and I believe your that our buses be rented from us and that the rentee is fully responsible for driving it and liability for any damages.
I don't love that option, but if we were gonna do it, I would obviously think we should align with, our attorney. I don't like the option of turning our buses over to somebody else. We don't know how much training they've had,
Right.
what kind of driver they are.
And how long have we been doing this with STEM Charter?
Since Dr. Reynolds, and so that her first year would have been 2013, 14, no, 2008. So sometime between 2008 and the 2013, 14 school year, sometime in that time frame.
Is when it started. Okay.
Can we rent them our drivers? Companies do that. We supply,
True.
they rent the bus and the driver.
I can ask Megan if that takes the liability, cause I think what we're trying to avoid is that if they get in an accident,
Right.
that it's our insurance that pays. And so I don't know the answer to. I can ask Megan that question.
I know commercially, it's whoever is renting the driver and the vehicle, but, you know, in this instance, there might be some other little thing somewhere, but.
Can we, I apologize for interrupting, Jessica Green from CFO, can we also check with ACRIP to see what their thoughts are on us leasing our vehicles to somebody else?
Renting instead of leasing.
Renting, yes,
Yeah.
same thing.
Well, and if, I mean, I know that we got it down here for $4.06 a mile, but if this does go to a renting, perspective, we would need to see what the value is in rent. I mean, are we still doing this for just a mile and the, you know, a per mile rate and, the cost of the employee? I don't know, it's getting messy.
I think it's so messy it just needs to go away. That's my opinion. But
But you can always make a motion to deny.
I move to deny this MOU and to just drop the. Cause how much time have we already spent on this and the back and forth, and we've checked with attorneys and we've checked with iCrimp, and I think it's a waste of time and it's
Okay, fair enough. So we have a motion to deny, do we have a second? I'll second the motion. So we have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
3 nays. So, motion passed. 2 in favor, 3 against, motion passed. So on that note,
So I will
please-
move forward and ask those questions of Megan and iCrimp.
Yes.
Coeur d'Alene rents their buses to them, so maybe check with Coeur d'Alene and see what their policy's like, so.
Yeah, that could be a good resource to find out.
I wonder if they're renting from Coeur d'Alene, why are they wanting?
We're
Well,
convenient,
'cause we're
we're
right
like
here.
3 blocks away from them.
So.
Cause we were doing it for free.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Well, I believe we were charging them, but we
were,
didn't know what it was.
Yeah, not enough.
No.
I would just suggest you take the simplest route forward. And don't make it any more complicated than it needs to be.
Okay, moving on.
Intended route to-
I thought it was, but I was going with it.
So that the motion failed, I would make a motion to table the STEM charter MOU, pending further legal guidance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries. Moving on to the 2024-25 calendar modification.
Is this 24-25 or 25-26?
24-25, it's this school year. Principal Everlyn is here to help answer questions. So our both high school principals have for several years tried to find a good schedule for finals, and they are requesting that we modify our calendar so that the last 3 days of the school year for high school students, not seniors, would be an early release days. Those 3 days, and Principal Everlyn has some just kind of information as far as what we've done in the past, what we've tried, and what the issues are that they're trying to counteract.
First off, it would be beneficial if you put that information on this, because the purpose is just to accommodate principal's request, but we don't see what the request is. That information wasn't there.
It's
It's in the.
Well, it just says
Oh,
students
just-
return textbooks and Chromebooks when done with them. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is there's no
I didn't.
Narrative on
what we're doing.
Sorry.
And then the schedule, all we received was Timberlake's. Is this mirrored with Lakeland?
Yep.
Okay.
Board Chair Thompson, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Arnold, I'm Ryan Everlyn, Principal Timberlake. And honestly, this is my 8th year, and all 8 years, our final exam schedules for first and second semester have been not very good.
Okay.
And last year I made a push to be here, but it just didn't work out, and so this year I just asked. So really I do feel like I'm here on behalf of all the students at the high schools and all of the staff. So with our current bell schedule in the spring presents challenges in the fall. The winter time also presents challenges. In January this year we had 3 days, and then we always end a semester with early release. So when we're looking at making final exams a consistent amount of time, it's impossible with also ensuring that students are seeing teachers the same amount of times. And so I talked to staff to get specific examples, and then I talked to students, and just over the years I've put down those their thoughts, and so I'm just going to give you a few. They're really consistent. So from the staff, it allows ample time for final exams. It evenly distributes the finals. Right now, it's not equitable. Some days we have 1, some days we have 3, some days we have 2, just to try to make it all the way to 210. And a lot of times that's when students have idle hands because they're done.
Yeah.
And then parents call them out, which is great, but then there's students that can't get called out, so they're there. And I would argue that's not a great scenario for a kid who's finished his exam and still has the rest of the day. So the overall structure of it is great. The end of each day offers office hours. We have students that are dual enrolled, students that are NIC, students that are K-Tech, students at IDLA, students that have jobs, students that have to take care of their little siblings, students with illness, extracurriculars. And so And with our current bell schedule, there's never a way to really see the teacher if you have to finish a project or finish an exam, or you were sick before Christmas and never had a chance to catch up. So this also allows for a couple hours after the school day where it fits into most parents' schedules. Because when our kids go home, a lot of times they have responsibilities, but this allows them within that 2:10 time frame to be able to then work with teachers to finish up everything. So I do think the end result is more kids passing courses, because right now we're done on a Thursday in January. Friday's a work day. Most kids can't come in for many reasons, and then we start the new semester Monday. So this allows each day, first and second period, then you have office hours with teachers if you need them, which I think we would have quite a few kids, and then you just go 2 periods a day. For the students, they just said it'd give them a lot more time to study because they are comprehensive finals. It is an inconsistent schedule, so a lot of times we're making deals with students because, well, hey, you did these exams on this day, but I have early work release, so I have to go to my job, I can't get fired. So I'm like, well, let's take it at this time, and then it kind of throws, and that's a pretty common one. They said the test would be easier to manage. I mean, for all students, whether you're a struggler learner or not, tests are difficult, and so if you have 3 final exams in one day, that's a challenge. They said probably the number one reason though is teacher availability, because that's probably our busiest extracurricular time of the year is January with all this winter sports, and so the teachers are available, but the kids usually have to get to practice. And then the last thing they said, and they were pretty funny, they're like, we don't have to guess what the semester's final looks like, the exams schedule, because it was a mess in January, and that was kind of my last straw, because we came off of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, came to school Tuesday. The only way to make it work equitably is they went to all 6 classes, then they took a 6th-hour exam, then the next day they took 3 tests, then because it was early release they took 2 tests. And then the end of the year isn't much better.
Right.
And I did print the last 5 years worth of bell schedules if you guys want to look at them, but they're not consistent, they're not structured. So I would ask that this would be modified for this semester and moving forward for the sake of structure and consistency.
Just to implement a modified bell schedule for secondary.
Yeah.
On exams, final exams.
Final exam week, yeah. So it would be 3 days every semester and 2 hours is more than enough, for our exams, but if we needed to go a little longer, we could, but that's what I set it based off of a 2-hour block.
Okay.
And that typically gives kids 10 or 15 minutes to study, and then the rest of the time they can take the exam.
And Lakeland is in agreement with this type of modification? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that input. Thank you, Mr. Everett. So is there a motion to modify the bell schedules for secondary final exams?
I have a question real quick. So does this have any trickle down effect on because of the buses with the elementary or the junior high or middle school?
Mr. Everett and I talked to our transportation director, and no,
Okay.
there would be no issues.
Any impact on minimum instructional time of students?
No.
Or attendance?
We exceed what the statutory requirements are, so.
The question is still valid.
Yeah, no, we did look at that, and it'll be, because the 2 high school principals feel really strongly that this is best for kids, it will be part of the conversation when we're working with the committee to put the calendar together to bring to the board for next year. So we won't have to make a modification, but as far as attendance goes,
It's not a full day of attendance, obviously.
well, they'll be there 4 hours,
Yeah, and
so we'll get the full day of attendance.
when we have other days like this where we don't finish the 6 periods, they're marked as present, so it doesn't go against their attendance. So
We're not fudging there.
no. there's just, that's how Skylar works. So the parents aren't getting an attendance phone call.
State statute dictates 4 hours is considered a full day
Yes.
for attendance purposes.
My philosophy has always been maximize student-teacher contact time, don't minimize it. So I just have to put that out there.
Yeah, it's been a long time, for me, 40 years since high school, but, this is actually the schedule that we had when I was in high school. It was two finals, and then, you were either able to stay and work with the teacher and get additional help for your upcoming finals, or, go home.
I'll move to approve the final schedule as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to the assistant superintendent job description. I just ask that this be brought forward to make sure that we are reviewing the job description to make sure it meets the qualifications that we're looking for in an assistant superintendent. And I noticed that we also have an assistant superintendent for elementary, an assistant superintendent for secondary. Have we married those two to create a general overall assistant superintendent job description?
I thought we actually did
Yeah.
that.
Is that,
changed it,
I thought that was,
yes.
I'm sorry, Brooke Cunningham, Director of HR. I thought the one that we provided you was the one that married the two, am I wrong?
No, well, it is, it just, under human resources, we have all three of them. So that's why I was like.
We'll remove those links, we'll
okay.
remove those,
Sorry.
for that separate the two on there. And I do believe, I went back in the minutes, I do believe that this was approved in October of 2022. But when we reformatted it, I think the person, one of my assistants that reformatted it, didn't know when it was approved, so it wasn't put on there when it was reformatted.
Oh,
But it was,
okay.
it was approved in October of 2022 in the old
Okay.
format.
Well, respectfully, I don't see any harm in us reviewing, for just kicks and giggles, I guess. I don't,
It is an important.
it is an extremely important position.
I think qualifications should have, being a principal, at least, running a school with, budgets and everything else.
Budget experience.
Yeah. It just says school administration, that means pretty much anybody can do it. That's their admin degree.
Yeah, I think we should look at, some other ones and see, being that it's been a few years. It'd be a great time to do that, just make sure it's up, I mean, we haven't even had the discussion about filling the position, given the levy, and where we're at right now, and what that looks like. But I think we should go over it and just look at surrounding areas and, you know, anything else, ask, you know, if this looks close or,
Right.
you know, make sure we get it dialed in what we're actually wanting.
Okay.
That would be my, I mean, just like we've done with the other ones,
Right.
you know.
Right. Okay.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we did have the elementary assistant superintendent and the secondary assistant superintendent, and those are old job descriptions, but do we really wanna delete those since, you guys haven't voted to delete them, but, maybe further down the road, there could possibly be those positions. I'm not saying there is right now, but, I mean,
Well, I don't know that you have to delete them, but if you pulled them off the website, since it's not a position that we have right now, that if we ever got to a capacity where we would need that, I mean, we have the resource to revamp it at that time.
okay.
Cause it's not a position we have right now.
Right.
So. Go ahead.
So can I just ask a question, just based on what trustee Grissom just said? There's absolutely no way that one superintendent can run this district, so this position has to be filled. I'd like to be able to open it sooner rather than later so that we are looking at quality candidates. So when you're saying look at other, kind of what time, we're already into April.
Mhm.
I'd like to get moving on it.
So what are you asking?
Well, you had just said maybe we should look at some other surrounding job
Right.
descriptions to make sure that
Well, like it was just brought up that there's no prior principalship, experience on here, and I think it's just, I mean, due diligence, I think it only behooves us to look at, make sure that we're getting what we actually want. I mean, it looks fairly generic. When I looked at it, it looks pretty cookie cutter, like there's nothing really about Lakeland in it, you know, like what are we having our assistant superintendent do, kind of thing. So, I mean, we have another meeting option in what, 2 weeks or whatever it is. I can do it by then, you know.
So to
That's true.
facilitate that, do you need something from us?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if anybody else does, but I just think we need to look at it and see.
I've looked at it, looks fine to me.
Yeah, I think it needs changes. I think it needs the principalship on
And budget
there, and,
experience.
there was something else when I looked at a couple of other ones, and they're on my other machine. And being that this was the first go over, and the first time we're discussing the position, of assistant superintendent, I just thought that we would, like everything else, we always just revamp and then go forward with it.
Right.
I mean, we've done it with everything else, I don't know why we would do this differently.
Right. Okay. On that note, we can revisit the job description at our next board meeting, and take action at that time if we want to have improvements or changes or not.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Okay. So we'll move on to architectural services contract.
I have,
Questions?
no, I'm very, this frustrates me, the assistant superintendent job description. So
Okay.
I apologize that you guys have already come up here, but it was on our agenda to discuss tonight, so if there was problems with it, or if there was discussion to be had, why weren't they brought for tonight to be discussed?
I just did.
But you said they're on, the things that you wanna change are on another machine, what?
No, that is my discussion, I brought it for discussion, and I think that was my whole point, was that I think we should take the care of this one the same as we've done the other ones, being that it's the first revamping, and, you know, put our touches on it and then do it, that is what I brought.
I guess I don't understand why not bring those items to
Right.
this discussion.
Well, Dave brought up one that actually was on my mind, and I figured we would treat it like the other ones, where it's the first time we've talked about it in a
Okay,
meeting.
it's just on the action items rather than being new business or discussion items, or, so, maybe it's just in the wrong spot on the agenda, but.
And that would be on me, so I apologize if that's, a point of contention.
I would remind the board that some time ago, I asked for a 2-reading calendar for all policies. Job descriptions are part of policy. Now, we pass time and again, policy after policy after policy in one meeting,
Yeah.
and yet we can't do it with this?
No, there's some, I think that we need to, make sure that we give it the same go-over that we have every other one. And this is part of the revamping of the last job descriptions when we went over. This is only the second time we've ever looked at this job description. We've only touched it one time before.
So what is the go-over you're talking about?
I just told you, I think we need to add that they need principalship, and I would like to compare it to the other ones and make sure that we have everything that we want in there.
Well, everything's in there that I want.
Okay, it's only 2 weeks. I mean, 2 weeks isn't gonna make or break.
With respect to the qualifications, the at least 10-year successful experience in teaching and school administration, I think it would be appropriate to have at least 10 years successful experience in education, which should include a minimum of 5 years teaching experience and a minimum of 5 years building principal experience, so that that person has, you know, they've experienced the budget, they've experienced having to do cutbacks, they've experienced all of that. Master's degree or higher, a valid certification as a superintendent, demonstrate leadership ability and working with student, staff, parents, and the general public. So I think that specific change for me is beneficial for this position.
And that's all valid enough, but it can certainly be sorted out when you go through the application process and screening.
Except we don't do that. So if, no, we're broad, this is who we want to hire. So that's why I'm saying, if the job description,
Somebody's doing it.
if the job description isn't what we want to see brought forward in a candidate, what is the point of them bringing forward a candidate and us saying, well, they don't have the qualifications we think this district needs in that person? And then we've just wasted everybody's time. That's why you should have the job description narrowed down to what you want, so that they're looking for that. But,
Excuse me, Board Chair Thompson, can I address the board?
sure.
Okay, Brooke Cunningham, Director of HR. I do have a recommendation just because of the current state of our district, of where we are, and time of trying to find an assistant superintendent. Would it be possible that we post the position pending changes of the job description, and that way we can accumulate a pool, and then we do our pre-screening process once that is job description is approved, but at least we can.
So you're gonna publish a job description and then make changes afterwards?
And we can say pending changes of the job description. Post the current job description, and I can say this job description is under review by the board. That type of thing. We just would like to be able, I just feel like the recruitment process can be kind of tricky with the current state of our district.
I don't know how that's gonna change in 2 weeks, is it?
I think we could start accumulating, at least get it out there, like put it out, you know, cast the net far and wide, and get it out there and get an applicant pool.
Well, I don't
How
wanna
about we just
get-
make some changes right now and put them on there and then put it out?
Yeah, I don't wanna get in the same position we've been prior legally, because our job descriptions were wrong. And people were given erroneous job descriptions.
And you could definitely post it, that it, like you said,
Right.
it's under review.
You know, so I'm trying to not get there again.
Right.
I don't know, I think if we're looking for an assistant superintendent, that's a fairly comprehensive application process, and I would hate for us to change the qualifications after somebody has spent the time and energy to put together their application materials.
Yeah.
So I don't like that idea, so, but thank you for
Sure.
throwing an idea out there.
Madam Chairman, I call for orders of the day.
Call for orders of the day.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
Move
Back
to the
to
next
the-
order of
Yeah,
business.
back to the
Okay.
agenda.
All right. So we will move on to back to the architectural service contract. Okay. So you received, statements of qualifications for Architects West, Design West, and Resolute proposal?
Correct.
Okay. And you are recommending that we stay with Architects West?
So I wanna be clear that this is a separate contract from anything else we're doing, but our recommendation based on the materials that we received and the recommendation of the committee for this RFQ is that we move forward with Architects West.
And that's solely based on the documents you received, is that what you're saying? Okay.
We have to be fair across the board, so based on the information that they provided in their RFQ, their project team, the references that they had, their locality, those are all things that we looked at when we were ranking the proposals that were received. And so they came out on top.
Well, the only thing that causes me caution, I guess, is when I looked through the proposals with Architect West, every single one of their projects came in overbid. Design West did not. They had some that came in under. So did we even consider looking at that to see how far off the mark the companies are historically? And was that
And
not a
Tim can maybe
consideration?
talk to this a little bit more. I don't wanna say you could fudge the numbers, but if you have an agreement in there for a guaranteed maximum price and you don't go over that, then you didn't go over, but there might still be change orders. So you might have agreed to a project for X amount that you have a guaranteed maximum price, and as long as you don't go over that, you don't have a change order. So it's hard to say based on the way we asked the question, if the over
Well,
budget
I'm looking
is-
at the information they
Right.
provided us, which gave the percentage of change orders, which gave the bid amount, and then what the actual was. And it's just concerning because I know that with I believe it was the middle school, we ended up being over budget because of change orders.
Which-
Go ahead.
That was an Emmerich thing and a board decision to accept those change orders. So while Architects West was our construction administrator, the change orders were through the company Emmerich, not Architects West.
Okay. My concern though is if we can be more diligent in verifying with these companies, how often are they, over on what they're quoting as opposed to,
So a lot of the construction.
coming in under.
Yeah. Tim Haig, Facilities Director, thank you. So a lot of that information that comes from the architect is the bid documents. And then the contractors bid on that. So the architects themselves aren't really affecting the cost of the project other than putting the material out for bid. So if a change order does come back, say open up a wall and there's pipes blowing up inside the wall, it creates a change order. Well, the architect may not have seen that going into the project. So I can't really hold the architect responsible for change orders unless it was pure incompetence where they didn't add something in that we requested. But that's where we come in, where we would be presenting, here's what we want, say for the concrete, here's what we're looking at, we got all the specs in place. We review it, we do a pre-con, we're walking out on the site, we're going over everything. So if there is something, we pop the concrete up and we hit a water main that nobody knew about, it's a change order. I can't really blame the architect on that.
Well, this isn't about blame, it's about simply looking at numbers and given our financial situation.
No, I absolutely
that-
agree, but the bids coming in are not from the architect.
They're from the
Gonna be from the contractor.
I do understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other thing that I looked at with these three is one's based in Utah, one's based in Spokane, one's based in Coeur d'Alene. I like having a local one. I like having one that's worked on local projects, so that it knows our area and our environment as well.
How many projects has Architects West done for us in the past, and which ones have they done?
Since I have been here, they were the construction administrator for the Emmerich project, which was started before I came on board. They donated their services for the 10-year plan, and they're currently, we contracted with them currently to do the bid docs for the concrete projects, and they're donating services towards the Timberlake Fieldhouse project.
They're also the design architects for Twin Lakes Elementary and
That's what I thought.
Timberlake Middle School.
Is that assessment okay with you, Architects West, or do you have
Well,
a preference?
you know, they've been around doing schools for a long, long time, but they're not without their
Right.
occasional errors as well. Tim pointed out while passing there,
Yep.
that if there's an architectural oversight, that's their responsibility. And that does happen on occasion.
Right, we're dealing with
Or
that
they
now.
are current on code and something happens and the inspector takes a look and says, no, you gotta do it differently.
Right,
And the architect laid it out, that's their responsibility, you know, those kind of things.
right, yeah. I was just thinking of Twin Lakes and the issue we're dealing with up there, and,
Right.
I don't know how you prevent that unless you have
Well,
eyeballs on it and making sure that it's done properly, but that's their job, you know,
So the architect's job is to put forth the plans, the specifications for what we want in a building and a
I get
repair.
that, yeah, but that
And then
didn't
we
happen
have
at
to
Twin
hold-
Lakes.
Yeah,
But
they
that's
didn't
the
build to the
contractor.
If
specs.
there's a design defect.
If there's a design
It's their
defect, we can
responsibility.
definitely go back to them for a defect. But if it's the contractor that had an overage or oversaw, then that's not so much the architect, but if the architect
Well, the
messes
other
up
thing
the plans.
is that a big piece of what you pay for the architect is his inspection of the contractor's work.
Right.
And the contractor cheats the job, and the architect doesn't pick up on it, who's responsible?
So
Yeah.
there's different models too. That architect, what we're looking at here is architect services. If we want them to be the construction administrator, that's different, but we do have Tim that's available to fill that role, which is what they were. Architects West was the construction administrator on the Emmerich project, so they were the ones that were walking around and signing off on whether or not the work was substantially complete, if it made sense to pay the pay orders, that kind of thing. We have Tim who has that capability as our director to be able to be the construction administrator. So we're looking at them to be just the true architect in the sense to provide the specs and the plans and the architectural piece of it, and not necessarily be the ones that are administrating the contract with the subcontractor that bids.
Yeah, to a point,
yes.
to a point,
Right.
you know, I mean, all due respect, Tim, you and I both know that you have your limitations too.
Absolutely.
Particularly when it comes to subcontractors, specialties, you know, electrical, plumbing, HVAC,
And then to that point.
and several others.
Absolutely. I'm not an electrician, I'm not an HVAC guy, but when I do those types of projects, I rely heavily on the inspectors that are there on the project as well. And then the inspector signs off on it, then I can hold them accountable as well.
Part of the architectural team is going to be who they bring in as consultants for all the specialties.
Correct.
And those team members have to review the project in progress and sign off on the progress as well.
Correct.
So you had, well, I think I'm hearing, you had 3 firms who submitted. Only one of which is local, so to speak. Spokane is almost local.
Spokane's almost local. Architects West has an office in Coeur d'Alene, a rather large office. They do have a presence in Spokane. The third one, I looked at their jobs that they did, and they're mostly Utah.
Yeah. The other thing I heard you mention in passing was the committee who reviewed it, and who was the committee?
It's Tim myself and Chelsea personally reviewed the RFQ, and then scored based on the rating table that was in the RFQ.
So is that the Architectural Services Committee that's named here? Is
Yes.
that- Okay.
And I listed the members. Be happy to extend an invitation to the board in the future if anybody wants to participate in reviews of RFQs or RFPs.
I've sat through lots of them.
They're riveting.
Can't wait for the next one, right?
Yeah.
Starting tomorrow. Bids anyway.
And what was the dollar difference?
So that's the funky thing with this, we're agreeing to contract with them,
Mhm.
but it's based on the project. So when you do an RFQ, you're not asking for a dollar amount because the projects may fluctuate.
You may ask for percentages,
Yes, we can definitely go back and ask for that.
because some will charge 6%, some will charge 7%, some will charge 10%.
Right, yeah, I can definitely ask
You need
for
to
that.
know where you are and how it's done.
Okay.
Good point.
And it's always negotiable.
Right,
Very true.
I don't have a problem negotiating.
For purposes of moving forward, I would make a motion that we approve Architects West as a Board of Architectural Services.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the Independent Financial Audit Services contract.
Chair Thompson, we went out to bid for independent financial audit services. This is our third-party independent audit that's done every year. I like to call it the Super Bowl of the finance team because it is basically our report card on how well we did our job every year. We only had one respondent to our RFP, which is Hayden Ross, our existing audit firm. Their rates are, I think, fair. In fact, based on the bids that Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene received, they are still fairly below the other firms that are either with those districts now or the proposals they've received.
Didn't get a response from Magnuson?
No.
Interesting. How does the pricing compare with what we've been paying?
It's a slight increase. It does make sense to me.
Define slight.
Knew you were gonna ask this question. Give me 1 second, I can tell you.
Well, it could be $1, it could be
It's
10.
a little bit more than $1.
Their tasks have gotten bigger, as a result of some legislative action. They now, in addition to auditing our finances, they also have to audit our evaluations because our evaluations are tied to dollars, with
The evaluation's going to the state.
our teacher evaluations.
The teacher evaluation.
Yes, they have to audit those
They're
now.
auditing our teacher evaluations.
How can,
Yeah,
They're
that's
CPAs.
yeah, how can a CPA?
The state determined that they would do that.
Yes, and so that is part of the reason that the costs have gone up, because they're spending more time with us to get that part done.
You're gonna have to get trained first.
They did a fantastic job this year. I will say they were able to help us catch a couple things that we are working with the state to correct as far as credits and getting some additional funding for some teachers. So that was great. We can go back 5?
No.
3?
No.
No, not anymore.
We can only do.
The current year?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, this year we paid $23,600 for audit services. Their proposed audit services for 2024-2025 is $30,900.
So it's up about $7,000. That's more than slight.
It's like 9%.
Hmm.
Less than.
Inflation.
I know.
And literally additional days that they're required to stay.
Additional work that has to be
So it's
completed.
just 30.9%.
So this says, for 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, oh, so 5 years, so what is that? What is-
So we
that's-
wrote the RFP, Trustee Grissom, to be a 1-year commitment with an option to renew for every 4 years, but we did ask for the rates for every 4 years if we did exercise our option to continue. So at any point in time, we could go back out to RFP for this after we basically just approve it every year. So I would bring it back to the board for approval every year for that additional year.
This is pretty standard.
And they're only increasing $900 every year.
Right, yeah,
Forward,
that had
so-
nothing to do with my question,
Yeah.
but okay.
Yeah, so I did ask for 1 year with option for a yearly extension up to 4 years.
Yeah, so 32.7 per year is what it is. Based on their 163.5. So 163,500 for 5 years.
Mhm. I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to discussion
Yeah.
items, we have the levy update. Is there any conversation we wanna have on the levy update?
No, thank you to everybody that is working so hard on this.
It is a labor of love.
Okay. Moving on to the class size update. Okay. So is this seems to be the same thing you said the last time you brought it to us, is that correct?
Yeah, there really haven't been any changes, so just making sure that you're, right, that, I want you to know that we recognize that we have pockets of class sizes that are larger than we would like them to be.
Do we need to have any discussion on class sizes? That we're going through?
No.
Pretty much is what it is.
The summer food program, yeah, especially the second game. Alrighty. So go ahead.
Chair Thompson, Jessica Grantham, CFO.
Char Boyd, Nutrition Services Director.
We propose to run a summer food service program for the duration of the summer school program. We have quite a drop off after summer school's out in participation, which makes it hard to break even at the end of the summer due to the lack of participation. We plan to run it the same as we did last year, congregate meal service at Lakeland Middle School for breakfast and lunch, and then a rural non-congregate service at Timberlake and Apple, where they receive a breakfast and lunch in one bag during a 30-minute window drop-off, kind of similar to the meals that were done during COVID, where they drive up and pick up the meal. The only change that we would like to make this year, due to the low participation at Athol Elementary, is to do a bulk distribution at Athol Elementary 1 day a week. There would be a Minidoka school district had a great program that the state shared out. Char was able to go and reach out to them and get the information. So essentially a family would sign up in advance and we would provide them a box, a meal, a week's worth of meals at one time. So we're still serving that community, but the participation was so low last year. I'm hoping this will increase the participation. We were maybe seeing 2 kids a day for a good chunk of it. So if we could do and advertise it before school gets out that this is an option that they can fill out the request, we'll have a box for them to pick up during a window. That would get them, depending on how they did it, they would get like a whole gallon of milk at once and things like that, so that the parent is present to pick it up. So that would be the only change to the meal service, just because it wasn't break even for us at all last year. We lost a lot of money providing that for the small amount of participation we had.
So would that be a one-time sign up and then they just show up every week, or
Nope, it
every
would be a
week you have?
It would be a weekly sign up.
Is that something that we will have online for them
Yep,
to be able
it's
to
a
do?
Google form that they can do. It's super simple. There's a QR code that they can sign to scan up. Minidoka shared all of their materials with us, so we can duplicate it really easily. The reason why we're only doing that there again was that low participation. With Timberlake High School hosting summer school, we have a lot of kids in the school, and then we do have quite a few families that walk over to the school because it's fairly easy to walk from anywhere in Spirit Lake and get to the high school for pickup times. So we did have great participation there. We would still offer bulk distribution to our families our participants at Timberlake High School, where they would receive, they're doing summer school Monday through Thursday, so on Thursday they would receive meals for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to take home with them. We've already addressed food storage while they're at school so that they're able to store it and then take it home with them after the day. So very, very similar to what we did last year, with the only change being that bulk distribution at Athol Elementary.
Yeah, I don't like that. And that QR code, that is wrong community. I mean,
And we don't have to do a QR code.
We're talking paper, talk to people face to face and make phone calls.
So that is our goal for Athol, is to get this out. A lot of the families at Athol Elementary do use Class Dojo, so getting that out through the Class Dojo link, it's just, we can even link it in there. We can talk to families. I definitely think our food service staff there could provide a slip that goes home in the backpack that just explains what the program is, so that we can get the word out to those families in that community that this is what the methodology is. We really, really had super low participation. I didn't want to remove the site completely, so this was kind of a compromise to continue to provide the meals, but in a way that it wasn't a complete loss to the program.
Yeah, so did you bring that information to us? So that we could see it was, because I remember a year or so ago we did that with the football and all that up at Spirit Lake, and we fixed that issue. But I don't remember seeing numbers. I don't remember seeing summer program numbers to.
On Athol?
Yeah, I don't remember seeing.
Somewhere along the line we did.
For current though, last year
I will
numbers.
make sure
Before
that
we
we
did,
provide
the
that.
year before we did.
Oh.
Yeah, because that was when we did the football. I forget what it was. They were meeting
But I
up
thought
with the.
last year was the first
Last
year
year was
when
the
we did
first year
it.
for rural non-congregate. It was a brand new
Yeah.
thing for
Oh,
the state of
okay.
Idaho.
Right.
Okay, so maybe that was it.
But I would be happy to share that data with the board. I apologize for not including it in this, but I will
Yeah.
tell you that the Athol utilization was extremely low.
Yeah.
But what I'm curious about is because the decision was made so late in the year, is if that had an effect on who participated, because it was a brand new program.
We still advertise through the school. We advertise through a school website. We had blasts that went out from food service to families in those areas.
Okay.
So I do think the word was out there.
Okay.
The one thing that we are competing against too, there's another local nonprofit that provides meals in the park, and so there was a lot of from my understanding from a friend that lives in the community, there was a lot of utilization of that program versus the school program. One other thing I do want to throw out there, and we're getting additional clarification from the state, and I believe this will be our last year to be able to provide free summer meals. We've hit the economic point with our free and reduced that we no longer qualify to provide free and reduced meals. We could potentially look at being a closed site where only our students that we have their data would be able to participate, and it would be on that free reduced paid platform instead of being a completely free meal. So this will potentially be our last year offering free summer food serving program.
Pretty sure you get that in a minute.
I will bring additional information on that once we receive. I'm waiting
Once it's
for,
finalized.
Yeah, once it's, but based on everything we received, if we did not currently have a 5-year eligibility, this is our 5th year of that eligibility, we would not be authorized to offer this program this summer. So this is our last year we are authorized to offer this program based on the census data from 5 years ago.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you both. Any other conversation on the summer food program?
No, I'm just looking to see where our discussion is on that. No, I don't have any.
I'll make sure to bring the additional information in my financial follow-up for the May 7th meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the classified certified staffing.
That was when we did the agenda planning, you had mentioned that Trustee Bain had asked, when we were doing future agenda items, she had
And based on your email, you said we were gonna wait and Randy was okay with that and this is a
Well,
great big spreadsheet.
Right, what I said was we would provide what we have right now, which is what our current staffing is, and then we'll be able to add information to it at the March 7th meeting, so that's what that is.
Yeah, so we have on the agendas going back a few years, summer food program. So we did talk to, maybe it was called something else now, but I knew we talked about it a few years ago too, so.
We did, but,
Yeah.
and we've always had the summer food program, but it's only been at Lakeland Middle School.
Yeah, well, we talked about Spirit Lake, cause I remember there was an issue and we figured it out, it was like $1 something per lunch, blah, 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 but I knew we talked about it, so
Okay.
that's good, that's fine. I just wanna see the numbers, how far over we were. Cause I know during COVID, they utilized the heck out of it, including the nonprofit and the restaurant
Okay.
was feeding everybody, so.
Right.
And it could be they're just, out doing their thing at the lake or something, they're not paying attention.
Could be. Okay. So is this what you wanted, Randy? Yeah. Okay.
So what she mentioned that this is what our current staffing is, and then what.
But it's really not, cause it's got people that have not even been here this school year. It says that it's as of 1/8/25 and it has,
Right. Trustee Bean, Brooke Cunningham, Director of HR. So, yeah, I didn't even think it was necessary to supply this spreadsheet because I know it wasn't what you were looking for. We are currently in the midst, CFO Jessica Grantham and I have met with each administrator and director. We've gone over their staffing independently. We've gone over what cuts that the board has asked us to do and to see what that looks like. And also, I believe in your vote, that was with some flexibility as well. And so we've met with them individually, but then we have other stakeholders that are a part of this. Like we have technology that it has to be a part of that discussion. We have the special education director, federal programs, that has to be a part of that discussion. We have to have the assistant superintendent, the superintendent. We have to have Mr. Haig from facilities because we have custodial stuff. So we organize some meetings where all of us are going to come together as a team with each individual building. We have back-to-back meetings coming next Thursday and Friday to get this all hammered out, and so we can have this for the next board meeting agenda.
And based on what I think you asked for, the plan is here's what staffing looks like with the levy in place, and here's bare bones what it needs to look like if we have to cut.
What I had asked Maria for was the staffing we have now, the staffing we've currently reduced, the staff we currently won't be replacing, and the staff that will be eliminated in the event the levy fails.
Right, and that's what we're working on.
It takes a little bit of, CFO Grantham, it takes a little bit of time for us to identify those positions because we're trying to make sure, one, it's easy with resignations and retirements to identify that, but we're trying to determine what needs to be replaced, and all of that. The other thing that we're doing is right sizing, what do we want to call that? It's not right sizing it, what am I trying to say? So if a building has 30 custodial hours and another building has 10, I want to make sure that we're equitable on how we're balancing.
Yep.
Same thing with new duties, things like that.
Paris.
So that's part of what we're looking at, and that's why there's so many stakeholders involved in the second meeting, is so that we're making sure that we're equitable across the board based on the building versus you need so many custodians based on square footage. It's not necessarily based, so we're looking at that so that we're operating appropriately. We have some bigger buildings that have less custodial hours than some smaller buildings, so we need to fix that. And so that's part of this process as well that we're going through. So there has been a lot of work that has been done on this already. The fun is trying to make sure all the pieces of the pie go together and that everything's covered that needs to be covered. So that's what the additional meetings at the end of next week.
Next week.
Yeah, next week.
Thursday, Friday next
will
week.
allow us to finalize, and that will then in turn allow me to finish my position control, and then budget projections based on the positions that are in there, so.
And of course, that's all tentative, because the board hasn't discussed if it didn't pass, who would go, who would stay, blah, blah, blah. And, I mean, yeah, we just don't know where we would be. I mean, we
Right.
haven't had that discussion.
So we did, and I'm operating off of currently what was discussed as part of the levy, so as far as
Right.
total positions, we know that it roughly equates to 25 teacher positions, so we know that we've gotta somehow identify what buildings can give up those 25 teacher positions if the levy doesn't pass. So that's part of this work. So some of that has been identified, the people may not have been identified, we have to go through a whole process with that if that's the case. But I'm building 2 budgets based on the scenarios, based
Right.
on what information is out to the community
Right.
on what we're cutting regardless because of the $2 million in cuts, and then what that $7.5 million looks like as well. So I will have the 2 for you in the event that the levy passes or doesn't pass.
Yeah.
And then based on what the state did to me yesterday, I will have 4 budgets for consideration.
Oh, it's a fun
State
time
always
in
does it.
education.
Legislature and their infinite wisdom.
Okay. Can we move on from the staff wages spreadsheet, or would you
Yeah,
like
can we just make sure that when we do these schedules that we have any stipend information is in a
It'll be
separate
separate. So-
schedule? I wanna see
Like,
teachers in classrooms and
so my plan will be very similar to the information that Corleen did. I was planning on doing position control anyway this year. I don't think I was at the board meeting that you requested this, but that was my plan all along. So my plan is to bring you position control by the positions and where they fall, and then how that carries over to the building. So you can see total hours by building, by if they're certificated, pupil services, administration, and classified, the state categories essentially. So it'll be very, very clear what percent FTE you're approving for those, how many people are in that. It's very clear.
Cool.
So-
thank you.
But all that doesn't have much to do with individuals.
Correct. You
So
you can attach names to them, but the schedule should actually not have
So the schedule will not have names attached to it, but it'll be based off of a pivot table that has the names in there. I am planning on potentially adding a couple vacancies that we know we may need to fill. One of the things that I'm thinking about is a para pool, because we never know how many paras we need, and I would like to build in a little buffer based on what we currently have and what our cuts will be, because if we have a student that comes in that requires a one-on-one, I need to be able to hire, we need to, not I, it's the collective I, but we need to be able to hire them. And how we've been explaining this to our district administrators is what's approved by the board with this position control is what we're held to. So if you're holding me to 30 hours of custodial at Athol Elementary, for example, if they need more custodial hours because they had an enrollment increase, we come to the board and say, we need more custodial hours, you approve it, and then we post for that. So that is the goal of this, is to make sure that we're not obligating fund balance without board approval, and that we're not going above and beyond the positions that were approved for that fiscal year without board approval. So it's just a mechanism to provide that one transparency to the public of how many positions we truly have, what FTE they are, and then you automatically know this is a position I approved and that's why it's on here for your approval as part of the monthly HR stuff that you're approving. So that is the goal of it. That's what we're working towards. That's what we will enact for next year. But we do want to build in, like I said, a little bit of vacancy, again, with approval, but we will have to act quickly on some of those positions if we have a placement. So that's the goal. And I will be able to highlight that for you where that is. The only place that I really intend to do that is with the paras, just because that's an unknown quantity until we have official enrollment.
It changes all.
It does. So, is there anything else I can provide on that other than the items that you asked for, Trustee or Chair Thompson? Trustee Dean?
Nope, this is good.
Anything else from anybody on this? No. Okay. Thank you. Next we have the quarterly heritage health data we were provided with. Any conversation or whatnot on that data? Last is the Ron Clark Academy. I just asked for this to be put on the agenda so that the board could be brought up to speed about what the Ron Clark Academy is and what we're doing within our buildings. Over Easter break, I started getting emails because the Ron Clark Academy program apparently is being implemented, and parents were concerned because of its association with SEL and DEI, and not knowing anything about what's going on, can't really answer intelligibly. So I brought it to Lisa, and I appreciated what she shared, and I think it's beneficial for us all to have that information.
So I didn't even think to bring this to the board because it's not a program and it's not a curriculum. Shannon, Ryder, Kelsey, and I attended the annual administrators conference in Boise last August, and the person who Ron Clark himself was the keynote speaker, and he talked about his experiences in education, and he started in rural North Carolina in a very poor county in a school that had historically had the lowest test scores. In his first year of teaching there, he had the highest test scores in 5th grade in the county. And one of his 3rd grade teaching colleagues came to him and said, what are you doing? So he taught her. And then the next year, he still had the highest test scores in 5th grade, and she now had the highest test scores in 3rd grade in this county. And so he thought to himself, it works here in a rural setting, I wonder if this works in an urban setting. So he went from rural North Carolina to Harlem, and right away realized that before he could really teach anything to the kids, he had to teach them how to respect one another and how to respect himself or him. And so he came up with his Essential 55, which is the book he eventually wrote. And in his first year in Harlem, he had the highest test scores again. So we're constantly striving to increase student achievement, and I wanted to know what is it that you're doing that is getting these test scores, these results. So I went to Mr. McDougall because he's worked with that staff. In the last 2 years, they've been laser focused on student achievement, and everything that he has done has been about that. And so I felt like they were, if there was anything to gain from this, they were the group that was most ready to benefit. So this was a professional development opportunity. When Ron Clark wrote the book, The Essential 55, he used the proceeds from the book to buy an abandoned warehouse in Atlanta and built his school. It is a private school, but most of the kids who attend there are attending on scholarship because he is in inner city Atlanta. And he built it to be a lab school. So teachers from all over the world come and watch the teachers teach. So the two things that Chris's team brought back were they teach to the highest functioning student in the classroom. Instead of teaching to the middle or even dropping the bar and teaching to the kids who are struggling, they teach up here, and then they provide the supports to get everybody up there. And that's one of the things they do. So they got to watch that in action. And the other piece of that is kids learn best when kids are in school. And so they came back with, they were very excited about some of the things that they're doing around just incentivizing kids coming to school. And so one of the things that they do is the house system, which I love because I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I wish that I would have gotten a letter to Hogwarts when I was 11, but I didn't. And so they have a house system, and so the kids were sorted at Timberlake Middle School right before spring break they were so excited. I was there, I got to participate, and they're already seeing an increase in attendance because there's this connectivity. So it's 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in the same houses, and so there's built-in peer mentoring, and just the ability to build friendships with people that you wouldn't normally even associate with because you're not on the same schedule in your day. And so the houses meet periodically, and we do have people from Timberlake Middle School here to kind of answer questions if the board has any. They get to kind of together decide what activities they're going to do. So each of the 4 houses at Timberlake Middle School will be doing community service projects, and so Shannon, that was why Shannon went with us to the Bayview Chamber meeting that we went to, asking if Bayview had any need of service from kids who are 6th through 8th grade age. She kind of reminded them, remember these are like 12 to 14-year-olds. And right away somebody said, well, we have a community garden and we need a lot of help just raking and weeding and getting it ready. And so Shannon, they gave her a business card, and Shannon is working with them to get, so one of the houses will do that. I ran into Jennifer Emery, one of our teachers there last week, and asked her how it was going, and she told me that they have an 8th grade young lady who has really struggled all year to be in school regularly. She's not missed school since she was put into her house, and the first week back she brought 88 cupcakes with red frosting for all of her red house friends to share, and so there's a lot of energy and excitement. The staff it loves the energy, and actually some of the instructional strategies that they learned when they were in Atlanta, they came back and implemented, and it was those instructional strategies that helped them get that $10,000 grant from the state of Idaho to support our ISAT scores. So one of the first things that Chris did with his staff was they did a book study on the Essential 55, and then together they came up with the Essential 12. So this is Mr. McDougall. And so the Essential 12, just so you know, make eye contact. During discussions, respect other students' comments, opinions, and ideas. Always say thank you when given something. Answer all written questions with complete sentences. Be as organized as possible. Protocols. After dining in the cafeteria, be responsible for your trash. If anyone is bullying you, tell someone and don't bully others. Be positive and enjoy life. Learn from your mistakes. Be the best person you can be. And no matter the circumstances, always be honest. So we had done, as an admin team, book study on one of his books called Move Your Bus. And that one asked us to really think about the people we work with and talk about are they runners? Like, are they Johnny on the spot anytime something needs to be done? They're there and ready to go. Are they joggers? Are they walkers, or are they riders? Or do we have people that we're dragging along that are kind of keeping us from being the best that we can be? And that sparked a lot of really good conversation in several of our buildings. So we do have elementary schools that would like to get the training on the instructional side of it, and then implement the same things that Timberlake Middle School is implementing. So it's not a program. There is no curriculum.
There is curriculum.
But we're not
We might
are
not use it, but there is
curriculum.
curriculum, and it is a program, so please do not say that. That's misleading. It is a program, and there is curriculum. So, and it is 7 mindsets of learning solutions. I read it, I looked at the scope and sequence, everything about it, and one of their big things is to tie in community trust, and I wondered how much this influenced the ads we're running, because you said it was a trust building relationship, and that's what he's big on, is making sure that the community buys into it also. You can't just get the students to buy into it. So there is curriculum. We might not be implementing it in the classroom, but there is curriculum and it is a program. I mean, the parents already know that, you know.
Right,
so
but we're not. I guess we're not implementing. we are not implementing a program. All we are doing is looking at some of the instructional strategies that teachers went and learned about, which we do all the time through professional
Right.
development. And then the house system, and we don't have to use his house system. We can make our own, and actually Dane James did that so that we're not using his system, and he just because that's who Dane is and that's what he does. So Mike Minty and Shannon Ryder are.
Is there a cost to implementing the Ron Clark suggestions?
The only cost if you're running the house system and you're using the Ron Clark
Method.
their house names and stuff. There is an app that you can use that, and you don't have to, but Chris is wanting to, and the app just it's the house points. So there's Timberlake Middle School has a TV in their commons, and you can just show that, oh, the red house has this many points and the blue house has this many, and students earn points, and you can use the points to incentivize the things that you're looking for. So if we're having kind of a slide in kids bringing their homework back, then the teachers can say, okay, we're giving house points this week for every student who brings their homework back on time. Or if we're really working on kindness toward each other, then it's whatever it is they're working on. But the app allows you to give the points and put them on the screen. So that's the part that Dane has kind of built on his own.
What's the cost of the app?
$1,800
Is that per year?
per year.
Okay.
So if we, because Dane did it, but Chris had already sorted his houses, any new schools would go to Dane's version of this. So not the same. Obviously we can't use the same names. And so Dane came up with Latin names that he felt like our community members would embrace. So one is virtue, the Latin word for virtue, and the other one was the Latin word for liberty, and I can't remember what the other two are, but he did an awesome job. So, what did you say?
We would keep the same house names.
Yeah, you've already sorted.
So very sorted.
Questions for Timberlake Middle School?
Do you mind if I
No.
just piggyback? So Shannon Ryder, principal assistant at Timberlake Middle School. I wanted to just kind of piggyback on everything that Lisa said. She outlined it so well. And just say, this really has helped us bridging the gap with trying to implement PBIS at the middle school level, where at the elementary, I know they have different systems like Class Dojo, the app, where, you know, if my 5th grader gets a point in class, I get notified right away. That's trickier for us to do at the middle school, so that's where the app, we just started trying to figure that out, but we're hopeful because it just allows us, when I walk through a classroom, if I notice 3 or 4 kids doing something exceptional, I can give them a point, so then they'll know about it, but then it automatically tells their parents. So right now when I do that, I go into a classroom, I see 4 exceptional students, then I come back, I write them a tiger ticket, then I find, okay, what class are they in now, then I go find them, give it to them, and then I come back, look up their parents' emails and email them. So it just helps us to streamline that process. And then we just have noticed so much engagement with our students, with their families, with the teachers. They're really excited, and it just gives every student a way to belong in a smaller way than a whole school, and gives intentional relationship opportunities between staff and students. Because some kids play football, some play basketball, some are in the band, but not all. So we miss some of those kids, and we have systems in place for making sure that a teacher has had an intentional conversation with a student, but this has really helped with that.
Mike Minty, Vice Principal at Timberlake Middle School. I know for me, dealing as the assistant principal, my behaviors are way down. Attendance is way up. And one of the things that would come back from this was engagement. We wanted our teachers with that engagement. But the way that kids are now engaged, and again, like Mrs. Miller said, we're reaching now, it feels like 100% of our student body. Whereas before, those wallflower kids, those kids that might not have been involved in things, are feeling like they belong to something, and they're really coming out of their shell. And it's so nice to see those kids really getting involved in what we have up there, because again, we love our school, and we think we're doing things really well up there. So for those kids to really come out of their shells and be part of the environment, and grades are gonna go up, attendance is up, all that kind of stuff. And again, that's what we want, what's best for kids. This is it.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Any other conversation on the Ron Clark Academy?
No.
Okey doke. We have no.
I do have to say something, because, so the feedback I got, the parents felt very blindsided that an SEL, this is how it came to me, what were we doing incorporating SEL? We thought we got rid of SEL, didn't you guys say no SEL in the district, blah, blah, blah. The community felt very blindsided. Once again, like something was implemented that they didn't know anything about or understand what it was, you know? So that was one of the reasons I looked into it and brought it up, because I didn't know anything. I didn't even know what the heck they were talking about. And it took me forever to even find the guy, you know? So that's why I brought it up. They just felt like, you know, so we can change the name so they're more acceptable to the community, and we can build a house outside of their own house and a family at school outside of their own family. You know, that's the feedback I got. So it wasn't, they just felt like they were out of the loop once again. You know, they feel really, getting to the point where their voice doesn't matter anymore, you know? And I can only combat it so much. So I'm just letting you know what the feedback is I'm getting. And they weren't happy about it, so I don't know.
Tiffany Mountain, principal at Twin Lakes Elementary. We are also following along with that house system, so that if a kindergartner gets selected at Twin and goes to Timberlake, then they stay in that same house from kindergarten through 8th grade. And before I went ahead and started doing this, I started surveying my parents and asking them, hey, do you have any concerns? This is where we're going, because in elementary what we're going to do is have 2 monthly meetings for an hour during lunch. One will be a celebration of students, and one is team building activities. For instance, working in a group to build the biggest tower with pasta and marshmallows, so that they get, and it gives our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders ambassadorship opportunities to work with our kinder 1st and 2nd. But I recognize that those are concerns, but I just want you to know there are many community members from my school who are super excited about it, so I'd like to have that.
And I'm sure that's true, but I feel
Yes.
I have an obligation to the people, and a lot of times they won't come say anything to you or to the superintendent, but they'll tell me.
And
You
that's,
know,
and these are parents that positively told me,
Right.
so I wanted you to have that information too.
Yeah.
That in both
I
my last
appreciate
2
that.
PTA meetings,
Yeah.
I've had several parents who are super excited, and they can't wait, because the kids don't know yet, the staffs have been sorted, the kids are gonna be sorted, and so they're really excited, so.
Thank you.
Right.
So excited about the systems. Kicking water bottles and everything.
I know.
House of Revert.
All right, anything else on the Ron Clark Academy? Okay. There's no action items. We have our dates to remember. Policy committee is tomorrow. We have town hall next Wednesday. Policy committee Thursday. Town hall Wednesday the 30th. Policy committee the 1st. The legislative roadshow is coming up on May 2nd. Down at the Coeur d'Alene Casino. Okie doke.
Now after 12.
Mhm. And then we have, the optional board meeting on the 7th of May. Do we have any input for future agenda items?
No.
Bob? Okey-doke. On that, I need a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061B.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second, we need a roll call vote.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee Bain?
Yes.
Chair Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Quimby?
Yes.
Vice Chair Grissom?
Yes.
That is 8:29 and we will recess for 5 minutes and then come back to the table. Alright, so we've come out of executive session, it is now 9:40. And we will take motions. I would like a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for personnel A, pending legal counsel's direction.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
With regards to personnel B, I move that we accept the resignation and release that
Personnel B.
person from their contract.
With a heavy heart, I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to personnel C.
I move that we accept the recommendation.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. And on that note, we can go ahead and end executive session. It's 9:41.